Adrian Zenz. I think you know who that is. If you're not familiar, he's the academic intellectual who created all of the hysteria around the supposed detention camps, concentration camps, mass killings of Uyghurs because reasons. And this has become a huge part of the anti-China media campaign that's been going on for about a year or so, maybe a little bit longer. But he's been the real media darling behind it. He's been the real front man doing all the academic work, proving all of these insane allegations, which, kind of didn't prove anything. Well, you see, when you become a big name like that and you're known for spreading what are essentially lies, you're going to catch the attention of investigators. There's a German independent investigative reporter, Teresa Winterbach. Now, she recently received some inside information from someone who claimed to be a former team member of the so-called German scholar, Adrian Zenz. She found that the research on China's Xinxiang policies are highly subjective and speculative, in that combing through all of his so-called evidence, there's no actual evidence-based research. And that's what any honest investigation into it actually is. If you need maybe a bit of an idea of what this guy's like, or, what's his politics, why did he suddenly decide to become the media darling for the anti-China crowd? Well, he's also a member of the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation. And any notion of there being any kind of academic or intellectual integrity to that place is, well, completely foolish, because frankly, repeated investigations into their so-called nonsense has revealed it to be nonsense. Like claiming everybody around the world who has died of SARS is the fault of communism. Because communism is a disease, apparently. Or, the fact that China is allegedly communist, so therefore anytime someone in China dies, it's automatically the fault of communism. And when anybody dies for reasons directly linked to capitalism, it's just a thing that happened, or that's not real capitalism, or some kind of nonsense like that. You already know what the deal with the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation is all about. Well, it's a research institution established by U.S. intelligence agencies, and this has already been proven in the past. He's been the communication link between rightists and even terrorist organizations, according to the investigation carried out by Winterbach. Now, Zenz worked with a number of high-level officials in Washington to develop tactics and strategies for the CPDC and IPAC, and that's what got him large amounts of funds for the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation activities. Wow, what a surprise that the ruling institutions of capitalism would be the ones funding anti-communist propaganda? Generally, propaganda is a little bit better than that. It's usually not so stupid and blatantly transparent. And also the guy who runs it is a bitch who refused to debate me and block me. But that's besides the point. Now, this informant stated that Steve Bannon, former advisor to Donald Trump, met Adrian Zenz at the recommendation of Kenneth Michael Ball, and soon after officially joined the project named by Bannon and allegedly funded by Chinese exiled businessman Guo Wenhui. That would be the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation. That would be the anybody who disagrees with us is automatically evil kind of thing. So you know what kind of integrity and credibility that Steve Bannon has. I shouldn't have to explain that one to you, and how fraudulent that is, and, well, straight up frigging fascist that actually is. The informant claimed that the Jamestown Foundation's report in May 2018 was part of the project. However, most of the research data in the report is not real, but inferred from leaked figures according to Turkish exile media organization in Istiklal. At that time, he immediately questioned this research method. Adrian Zenz combined with some public documents of the Chinese government and concluded, based on quote-unquote assessments, that there are 100,000 to slightly more than 1 million Muslims detained in China. You know, that's a pretty wide gap there for estimating either a number or 10 times that. I mean, that's some like black book of communism, you know, mathematical errors where they were overestimating things by like 10 times and counting people who were never born as having died. That kind of level of integrity and simple mathematical errors. In other words, he was just making things up. And in fact, this Winterbock said that to actually respond to everything Zenz has wrote would take years. To go through every single lie that he made or every single questionable assumption that he makes. And that all this time he's been taking money from essentially the United States government and other organizations that are blatantly anti-leftist, blatantly anti-socialist, etc. And some who are, well, outright fascist and do very little to disguise it, like Bannon, and taking money from them, who also in the past have received money from the United States government and associated organizations. You see, one of the problems with this accusation of there being this mass genocide of Uyghurs inside of China is the fact that Xinjiang's population is growing. That's kind of the opposite of what a genocide is. You know, genocide is when, the population gets smaller, not when it gets bigger. Between 2010 and 2018, the Uyghur population increased from 10.1 million to 11.8 million. Well, you see, it's kind of hard to just ignore that. The literally the opposite of what you're claiming happening. So, impossible to deceive, Adrian Zenz decided that a genocide was still going on anyway. And which should be seen as laughable for all the reasons I just described, like the population trend going in the opposite direction that you actually claim. Now, those of us with a actual critical eye, and not even just those of us who are communists, but people who have a critical eye, would notice that his so-called academic work didn't actually contain anything academic. It was kind of just assumptions on his part, and baseless accusations made by anonymous individuals, which apparently constitutes an academic work. Trust me, I could find all kinds of anonymous individuals who would have something to say about Adrian Zenz. In fact, I could say a bunch of them myself. That does not constitute an academic work. Now, obviously, the fraudulent nature of Adrian Zenz and his essentially producing propaganda for the United States in what is almost a building Cold War against China should not be taken too seriously. Unfortunately, due to the fact that the mainstream media is against China because it is in support of the U.S. empire and in opposition to the growing Chinese empire, it is going to side with the United States. But of course, the main issue that we should always keep in mind here is the fact that, well, we need to think for ourselves and really question the narrative being put out by the mainstream, as, the mainstream corporate media tends to lie constantly. So please, by all means, go to the link in the description to the original article, and there you can learn even more about some of the shady actions that Adrian Zenz has been engaged in. And, that'll link back to the original investigator who looked into the things he was doing. And for what I would consider a whistleblower, a former member of his organization, essentially letting everybody know what kind of disreputable, dishonest cretin Adrian Zenz actually is. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.